Hello.
Hello.
Shall we begin our discussion of Phaedrus and postmodernism?
Dude, I have you in a cage above boiling lava, and you want to talk about Plato and current society.
Quite so.
To each his own. What do you have to say?
I believe that knowledge concerning rhetoric provides a stable alternative that combats the instability concerning truth, which one finds in postmodern culture. Our working definition of truth will constitute the transcendent reality of things, events, and facts, in other words, a fixed reality. With this definition in mind, you will find that the Phaedrus illustrates and outlines the essential debate relating to truth, proceeding from antiquity. In short, the debate in the Phaedrus questions whether or not truth is tied to rhetoric. A basic understanding of the debate, exemplified in the Phaedrus, will provide the groundwork for an understanding of the greater question concerning our access to truth and values. In turn, the conclusions found relating to our access to truth and values become relevant in light of the stumbling blocks that postmodern thinking places in the path of an individual untrained in rhetoric. In the end, the reader will find that rhetoric provides a unique avenue of escape from certain societal difficulties that result from postmodern thinking.
You have piqued my interest. Here is what I know. The Phaedrus provides the essential outline of the debate between truth and rhetoric. The debate begins formation when Socrates proposes the question to Phaedrus that, should not the mind of the speaker know the truth of the matter about which he is going to speak? Immediately, Phaedrus proposes the quintessential counter-proposal. He believes that the orator needs only to concern himself with popular opinion in order to persuade the listener. Specifically, the orator need not concern himself with the truth of the subject matter spoken on. Rather, the orator need concern himself with what is commonly accepted as truth. Socrates tidily proves his own point in the debate when he conveys that the orator must truly know the subject spoken on in order to persuade or deceive the listener.
I see that you have done your homework. A fellow thinker you are.
Why, yes. I know a thing or two, homie.
Well then, perhaps you forgot the point. In opposition to the previous claim, the second argument arises from Phaedrus. The argument that Phaedrus offers imparts the notion that truth or true details are not necessary to rhetorical discourse. White, whom you quoted earlier, summarizes Phaedrus' point with the statement that what seems just or good or noble to the many will suffice, and truth is not necessary to achieve persuasion. Essentially, the argument holds that the opinion of the masses can stand in place of truth. In addition, the mere effect of beautiful rhetorical discourse will persuade the listener. In effect, rhetorical discourse is seen as a methodology separate from any fixed subject matter.
Think me not a fool, O green one, or I will fry your broccoli behind.
No. Please. I like my broccoli behind the way it is.
Fine. Although, upon examining the two previous arguments, I will note one key difference between Socrates' and Phaedrus' arguments. On one hand, Socrates' argument relies upon the idea of rhetoric as a technique, a craft, applied art. Harold Osborne, writer of Aesthetics and Art History and Historical Introduction, notes that technique is always directed to some ulterior end, the end of medicine is health, etc., and is not pursued for its own sake. Essentially, the rhetorical method, for Socrates, becomes a craft, applied art or technique, with the truth of the subject matter at the core, whether or not the rhetorical method drives the listener to truth or deception. This core of truth is the key difference between the arguments. On the other hand, Phaedrus' argument entails no such core. The rhetorical method of persuasion is seen as an end in itself since no fixed subject is found at its core. One may say that the rhetorical method of Phaedrus is an art, method of communication, but not a craft, applied art. In summary, Socrates promotes a rhetorical method akin to a craft, with truth at its core, while Phaedrus suggests a rhetorical method more likened to an art, a mere method of communication. How do you like that?
Is that a rhetorical question?
What?
Never mind. Your answer was too hot to handle. Guess what?
What?
There is another viewpoint.
Really?
Yes. From these two arguments spring a third viewpoint. David Roachnik, writer of Is Rhetoric an Art?, points out that the greater question lies in whether or not we have access to truth and values. Roachnik, in further defining a techn, regards a techn as a determinate body of authoritative knowledge. He alludes to the fact that truth and values are accessible when he goes on to say that, as a result, only a specific kind of entity, namely that with stable and intelligible limits, that is, which is itself determinate, is capable of receiving technical treatment. In other words, if rhetoric is considered a craft, then it must deal with an entity with stable and intelligible limits. Upon examination, one may theoretically conclude, in an abstract sense, that the most basic form of any entity is the reality of the entity, the truth. Therefore, building on the previous argument of Socrates, that truth is the core of rhetoric, yes, in at least an abstract sense, the rhetorician, or individual, has access to truth and values.
Ooh, good point.
Then you will let me go.
No such luck, Chuck. Well then, whether or not one accepts the conclusion to the third viewpoint, I agree with the aspect of the third viewpoint that the greater issue is our access to truth and values, and add that the third viewpoint gains even more relevance in light of current problems proposed by postmodern thought. The question of our access to truth is not only an ancient question, but is also a modern-day problem that arises due to postmodern thinking. Much like Phaedrus' questioning of whether truth need be married to rhetoric, postmodern thinking questions whether a single fixed truth need be attached to what we perceive as reality. In short, postmodern thinking promotes relativism concerning truth. Roland Hochsbergen, writer of Postmodernism and Institutionalism, toward the resolution of the debate on relativism, notes that postmodernists who have considered the foundations of human knowledge come to the conclusion that there is no objectively identifiable foundation, and thus we are led inexorably toward relativism. Consequently, from the rhetorician's perspective, a consequence arises concerning current society and truth. If relativistic reasoning concerning truth persists in society, then a situation likened to the story of Socrates as will quite likely occur. When the truth of the matter is not truly understood by the rhetorician or the listener, a situation of confusion and chaos ensues. Socrates, in the Phaedrus, makes this point when he states that, when the orator instead of putting an ass in the place of a horse, puts good for evil, being himself as ignorant of their true nature as the city on which he imposes is ignorant, and having studied the notions of the multitude, falsely persuades them not about the shadow of an ass, which he confounds with a horse, but about good which he confounds with evil. What will be the harvest which rhetoric will be likely to gather after the sowing of that seed? The point that Socrates makes is valid. If a rhetorician studies what the populace believes to be true instead of what is true and persuades them accordingly, then a truly perplexing situation may arise. For example, if the multitude believes that a certain politician is trustworthy, and the rhetorician only studies what the multitude believes instead of finding out the truth for himself, then decline in the public good will occur. White reiterates this point when he declares that, if both speaker and audience are ignorant of good and evil, there is little hope that whatever is said can halt the eventual decay of the populace. Further, no real victory is gained when rhetorical persuasion is achieved under these circumstances. Indeed, White eloquently states this when he dictates, the orator, keenly reacting to a studied feel for opinions, may win rhetorical victory but hardly of consequence if the polis is ruined as a result.
Hold on. Hold on. My head hurts after that one.
Wimpy Broccoli Man.
Ha ha. Don't forget that, conversely, another consequence may occur if rhetorician, of a baser sort, understands the truth of a matter and persuades the populace in a self-serving or devious manner. Ken Watts, writer for the Daily Mail website, expresses this idea in the article, Spirituality, Rhetoric, and Politics, Part 1, when he states, "If I try to influence you without regard to truth and understanding, I am very likely to end up misleading you, lying to you, and treating you with disrespect." Accordingly, the lack of understanding of the truth of a situation or a subject can place an individual in a compromising position when confronted with a well-trained rhetorician.
Reminds me of your own situation. You lack the gravity of your situation. Would you like to be well done or medium rare?
Neither. Maybe I can persuade you with my final comment.
You can try.
Good. With the basic problem and possible consequences of postmodern thinking understood, you will now see how the viewpoint of Roachniks becomes relevant to our current society. Roachniks' viewpoint concerning the truth and rhetoric debate expresses that the real question actually concerns our ability to access truth and values. In addition, he alludes to the idea, at least in an abstract sense, that we do indeed have access to truth. In light of our postmodern culture and the problems that may arise from the relativistic thinking toward truth, the viewpoint of Roachniks, and the study of rhetoric, provides a stable alternative viewpoint to the rather unstable outlook of postmodernism's relativistic thinking concerning truth. Although staunch postmodernists may object to the idea of any fixed truths, the argument of Roachniks proves quite compelling. By applying the study of rhetoric and the consequential search for truth in everyday life, the individual will avoid the pitfalls of postmodernist confusion. How do you like them apples?
Well said, Broccoli Boy. I may well study rhetoric now.
Have I persuaded you to let me go then?
One thing has eluded you.
What?
The truth.
What do you mean?
I lost the key and couldn't lock the door. You could have left at the beginning.
Then why did you keep me here?
Me likes the green man.
Is that the truth of the situation? Or do you actually like the form that I represent? What did I say?